the sort of the main thrust of the central sort of climate and energy strategy that I was being taught as I was a young advocate was the idea that we needed to make fossil fuels more expensive, that that's how we were going to drive human society and sort of get the profit motive aligned to push people away from fossil fuels and towards the kind of innovation we needed in the clean energy space. But as I worked more closely with Michael and Ted and with others in this space, realized that there's sort of some fundamental flaws to that philosophy, both on a practical standpoint in that any sort of proposition to the American public that we're here to make your energy more expensive is a pretty difficult sell. Particularly when you're talking about an issue that has a relatively low salience to most of the public, like climate change or the environment, that routinely ranks far below things like economic security, national security, the price of energy even. And on a more humanitarian basis, we have a world of 7 billion people. We're moving towards 9 billion over the course of the next 20, 30 years. And today, a full third of that global population basically burns dung and wood for their primary energy source. These are the energy sources that humans discovered 50,000 years ago when we invented fire. And that's what they have to rely on today. And they have to rely on dung and wood and basic biomass because energy of all forms, modern energy, is too expensive. So the idea that we're going to move towards a world where both fossil fuels and the clean energy sources that replace them are more expensive than they are today is really a world where we've locked out a whole host of the global population from the enjoyment of the modern energy system that we all take for granted. So I realized that we're getting ourselves into what I call the development trap, where either we have to sacrifice our ecological security and sustainability in the name of global development, or we have to give up on the idea of global development and equity in the name of environmental sustainability. And neither of those positions is very tenable. The solution to getting out of that challenge is to make clean energy cheap enough to power the global economy, to help lift millions and even billions out of poverty, provide almost universal energy access, and to do so without exacerbating our climate challenge. And so that central challenge, making clean energy cheap, is really what animates our program at the Breakthrough Institute, trying to figure out the policies, the solutions, the technologies that are needed to make clean energy cheap enough and scalable enough to power the planet. Well, when you start reorienting yourselves around the idea that we need to make clean energy cheap, it becomes an energy innovation challenge. It's a technology challenge at its core, not an environmental challenge, not a pollution regulation challenge, which is how we've typically conceptualized the climate challenge. It's similar to stopping acid rain or ozone depletion in that you sort of have to put some scrubbers on smokestacks or regulate the pollutant. If your goal is to make clean energy cheap, you have to sort of harness and unleash the powers of innovation and entrepreneurship to drive change in these technologies, to drive their maturation and improvement, and to use public policy to guide that process. And so we've delved deeply into really technology policy and economic policy around innovation to figure out how to apply those forces and to unleash really what is a core American assets and values of entrepreneurship and innovation to tackle this most important global challenge of environmental sustainability and energy access through the form of clean, cheap energy sources. So the only way we really have a hope, I think, of stabilizing carbon in the atmosphere is if we can make energy sources that basically make fossil fuels obsolete. There are enough downsides of fossil fuels that if we have suitable, viable, and affordable replacements, the world will gladly adopt those technologies. But if they remain inferior and more costly, then we're stuck in that development trap. We're pitting our economic destiny against our environmental destiny, and that's really an irresolvable conflict. There's no good way out of that. So the only way to get out of that is to sort of bust out or break through that dilemma through a course of energy innovation that can make clean energy cheap enough to sort of power the aspirations of 9 billion people on the planet. That's no easy task, but we've seen economic and technological transformations like that in the past. And what it's taken is really a public and private collaboration. The role of government being to sort of support fundamental research and innovation and to often be an early adopter for new technologies as they emerge into the marketplace. And in so doing, to support the private sector forces of innovation and entrepreneurship that's animate our economy and drive forward technological change. And we've seen that from everything from building the railroads and canals that first united our country over a century ago to microchips and the internet and broadband and even the iPhone, where all of the core technologies inside it really were developed with the support of the U.S. government, whether it's the microchips at its core, or the radio, technology that forms cell phone technology, or the GPS system, which is launched by the, the military, that helps you know where you are all the time in your smartphone. I mean, these are the kinds of partnerships that we take for granted, but have led to all sorts of transformative innovations in the past. And if we harness those forces in the future, we can tackle this energy challenge as well.